So in this video, let's talk a little bit more about details. When we talk about details, often we're talking about contrast, this edge of a line between black and white that makes a photo stand out a little bit more. We also call this sharpness. It appears to be sharper. And so we have a couple sliders in the Photos app that allows us to give this appearance of more contrast or more detail. So take a look at this photo, and this shows you exactly what I'm talking about, right? Do you notice that in the second photo, the after, there's a lot more detail. It's a lot sharper, it's a lot crisper. It allows the photo to almost pop off the screen. And that's what we're looking to do, is create a little bit of what we call micro contrast or sharpness on these edges. And that's exactly what these sliders do. Now, before we go ahead and dive into how to adjust the sharpness and the detail of this photo, there's a couple things I want to bring to your attention. One, if I click on filters here, you'll notice I already have a mono adjustment applied. I just think this photo looks better in black and white than it does color. And you're also going to notice that you do pay attention a little bit more to the details of an image when the color is not there to be a distraction. So with mono applied, there's going to be one more adjustment that I want to make. I'm going to click back on this icon for our adjustments. I'm going to click on this auto tool. Look at the difference that it does. It adjusts all of these sliders for me and just gives me a little bit more of an impactful photo in the process. Now let's go ahead and dive into the details. I'm going to swipe all the way to the left here until I get to sharpness. What is sharpness, right? It's a little bit of a challenge to describe. If I zoom in, and this is important, you're not going to see this in your full screen view. This is something that you do want to zoom in. You just pinch with your fingers to zoom in a little bit. And now we'll get a chance to see when I drag the slider over, it appears as if the image is sharper. And I'm using that word appearance specifically. What it's doing is finding all of these lines anywhere where darkness meets brightness. That's where we have an edge, bright on one side, dark on the other. And what it does is it takes that edge, and whatever's dark, it makes it a little bit darker. And whatever is the bright part of that edge, it makes it brighter. And what that does is trick our minds into believing or perceiving that the image is actually sharper. So let's go a little too far. Let me dial this all the way into 100 just to show you what this effect does. And now I'm going to tap on this wheel. And so there's my before, and there's my after. Now I think that's a little bit too far. So we're just going to dial this back, and we'll just rock this back and forth to something, I think around 40. So now that we talked about sharpness, let's take a look at the next option we have, definition. Now definition is a little bit different than sharpness in the fact that it impacts the photo as a whole. For sharpness, for instance, we do want to zoom in because we want to see all those individual lines in the photo. Definition, you will see the impact if you zoom out on the image because it looks at the photo as a whole and gives you a little bit more definition, basically contrast in those areas around those lines. So let's zoom out, just like that. And now let's take a look at what definition does in a full screen view. I'm going to drag the slider all the way to the right. And now let me turn this on and off simply by clicking on that wheel. So now that you see the difference that this makes, I think this definitely is too far. So I'm going to dial this back in, and somewhere I think, probably right in the middle, I think 50 makes a good adjustment. So there's my before and there's my after. Look at the impact that this has already. So the next slider that we have is noise reduction. Now in this photo, we actually don't have that much noise. Actually, most photos, especially with the newer generations of phones, the noise is actually so clean that we rarely need to use this. But I'm going to show you another photo when we do have noise, exactly how to remove it. For now, in this photo though, I want to skip that and just talk about vignette. So what vignette does is darken the edges of the frame. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So as I drag this to the right, you're going to notice that the corners of the frame start to get darker. So why is that so important? Now, when the average person looks at an image, their eyes are going to wander all over the frame. By darkening the edges of the frame, what that does is concentrate the viewer's eye in the middle of the photo. The key here with the vignette is to do it so subtly that you barely notice it. So I want to back this down a little bit. Maybe 25, that's it. I'm going to tap on the screen to get my before and then my after. Look at the impact that that has, right? Just adjusting the sharpness and the definition, adding a little bit of vignette goes so far in creating impact in our final photo. Now I'm going to bring up the next photo here. Now I chose this image because we do actually have a little bit of noise. Now noise typically shows up in the shadows of underexposed images. Now why is that? It's important to understand what noise is. In photography, in digital photography specifically, we're converting light to information, to pixels that we can see. The more light we have, i.e. the brighter the picture is, the more information we have. So if we have a darker portion of the image, by definition, it has less information. Noise shows up where we have less information. So let me show you what this actually looks like. I'm gonna click on the word edit on the top right. I'm just gonna pinch the zoom all the way in because you're not gonna see the noise in a full screen view. It's a very fine, granular detail that you're only gonna notice when you're zoomed in a little bit. So if you post this on social media or elsewhere, it's not something that you have to address right away. But if you are gonna print your images, it's something to consider that you might wanna zoom in and check those details. So now I'm gonna go ahead and find my noise reduction slider right here and pay attention to the surface of this building. Now as I drag the slider, look at what happens to all of that grain. It just kind of disappears. I'll go all the way to 100 and I'm doing this intentionally. Look at the before and after. Of course we do reduce that noise, but we also start to lose a lot of that detail as well. We start to lose a lot of the sharpness or the edges of the photo. So we don't obviously want to go too far with the noise reduction. So I'm going to back this down a little bit to somewhere maybe around, let's say 40. So now that we applied a little noise reduction, it does work, right? You see how it removes all that noise, but we also lose sharpness and detail in the photo as well. Let's go to sharpness here. And I'm gonna stay in this zoomed in view so we can see the effect, the impact that this has. And I'm just gonna drag the slider somewhere right around here, 25. And I'll turn this on and off by clicking on the wheel, before and after. You see how it brings a lot of that detail back? So anytime that you use noise reduction, consider also adding just a little bit of sharpness to counteract the softening of the photo that may occur. So there you have it, details. Don't miss the opportunity to zoom in, take a look at whether you have noise, take a look at whether you need sharpness or not, and consider adding sharpness and definition, as well as noise reduction, to give your photo just a little bit more impact as a final result. This video was a free preview of the iPhone Editing Academy online course. In this course, you'll discover everything you need to know to edit your photos to perfection using the device that's always in your pocket. Whether you want to breathe new life into your old images or make your best photos even better, you'll find out exactly how to do that on your iPhone. I'll show you the latest photo editing tricks that will transform even average photos into stunning masterpieces in just a few minutes. So if you'd like to learn more about creating incredible photo edits on your iPhone, please take a look at the full version of my iPhone Editing Academy course. You'll find the link in the description right next to this video. So click on that link now and I'll see you inside the full version of this course.